And two program guests this morning, the two Tonys. First, the Leader of the Opposition, Tony Abbott, and then the Independent from New England, Tony Windsor. That's coming up, but first, with the help of the panel, we'll check out the Sunday papers around the country. Laura Tingle, first of all, significant development with a Liberal backbencher doing a bit of freelancing and apparently threatening a couple of the independents.
Yes, Barry. Albie Schultz, who I think is aiming to take over Wilson Tuckey's role as the mad uncle in the coalition, has come out and told the three former national independents to pull their head in, and don't they realise that the only thing that can save the country is the coalition, and they should just get on with making them the government.
That can't be helpful.
Well, I think that there's a lot of fighting on both sides, and anybody who knows Albie Schultz knows that this is true to form. As Laura says, the mad uncle, a very good description of him. I think he's had that mantle for some time, or that moniker.
But this country Liberal National Party animosity towards the independents, I think, is going to be quite a factor when they consider their self-interest, which even in the, rainbow-hued multi-party democracy that we are apparently entering will have to come into it. They have conservative-leaning electorates, sure. They're conservative-leaning guys, sure. They've built their whole careers on differentiating themselves from the National Party and from the country Liberals, and the clear evidence that the country Liberals and the Nationals don't like the idea that they're going to be able to do that even more in spades will probably weigh on their thinking.
Could I just say there's infighting on both sides, but the very important distinction is the infighting on the coalition side involves the independents.
Well, the infighting, people have talked about the personal animosities, but the really crucial issue here is that the Nationals, who keep being reduced further and further, rump is a wildly overused term, but they're actually confronted with their political oblivion in this. If the independents manage to get a good deal out of this arrangement, everybody in the country who supports the National Party is going to be saying, hey, wait a minute.
I want one of them. I want what they're having.
Yes, exactly.
And Rob Oakeshott says that Warren Truss is allowing a smear campaign to be run against him.
But he hasn't said exactly what this smear campaign is.
But all of this can't help that when they're weighing up what they're going to do. It's not creating the right sort of atmosphere. I loved in the Albie Schultz story, not only did he ring them once, he rang them all back again the next day.
Just to make sure they got the message.
And Andrew Wilkie, not to be left out of this, he met with Julia Gillard yesterday. He's meeting with Tony Abbott tomorrow. Then he says he'll meet with Julia Gillard immediately after that. Then he might need to meet with Tony Abbott again following that. And essentially what he wants, I think, is reforms for poke machines. He wants something done about Hobart Hospital. But let's hear from him now. This is how he plans to approach it over the next week or so.
I've been careful to keep the other three independents at arm's length. I'm not going to go around in an apparent block the way they have done. And I suspect some people are a little bit uneasy about the way that block appears to have formed. 3 independents or 4 independents standing together as a block looks like a political party with factions.
But he's got it wrong there. They're negotiating as a bloc, but they're not saying that they will vote as a bloc.
No. Tony Windsor actually has said today that he thinks that the three of them will probably take slightly different positions on policy once they've actually done that. But they all are after the same information, whose election costings are actually affordable, and they're going to work together on that. But I think clearly Andrew Wilkie's looking for a bit of product differentiation here.
And even Adam Bandt hasn't said for sure that once he casts his vote to form a government and to pass supply, that he won't differentiate himself on some issues. So there's going to be a whole lot of cats to herd on every single piece of legislation that whomever forms government wants to get through the lower house and then the upper house.
But Adam Bandt would be more likely to be bound by what his upper house colleagues want from him in the lower house, whereas the 3 rural independents, you would find probably Tony Windsor and Rob Oakeshott would be more simpatico on a number of things than the 3 of those, including Bob Katter, voting on the same thing. They have vastly different views on the mining tax, for instance, and on climate change and those sorts of things. So those 3 can't really be seen as a bloc. Whether they actually form one for the purposes of getting somebody over the line here is a fascinating point, because the one that could deal himself out of contention in here is Bob Katter.
OK, and Lenore, just finally, an unpleasant start really for the new member for Hasluck, the first Aboriginal to be elected to the House of Representatives.
You almost hate to talk about it. Apparently Ken Wyatt in the seat of Hasluck, who looks like he's going to win that seat for the Liberal Party and become the first Indigenous Australian elected to the House of Representatives, has received at least 50 emails and telephone calls from angry voters saying they didn't know he was Indigenous when they voted for him, accusing him of being interested only in Indigenous issues. It's a sad thing on what is obviously a good thing for an Indigenous person to get into Parliament.